saw the source. I've seen orbs. This was no orb. This was rectangular. It had the 90 degrees. And I actually got to look inside what for lack of another term, I'm going to call it a portal.
Well, welcome back to the iTuber Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Franklin. And today we have on Greg Ogles from Cryptic Expeditions. And make sure I get this all down pat. He's a filmmaker, LBL, and the things he found while making the film. That way you guys go out and watch it. So if you keep coming back to the channel, please do me a favor, like and subscribe, leave a comment, go ahead and click that bell notification, all the things you have to do for YouTube. I'm on Rumble. If you'd like to go over there, and also, if that's also fine, you can find me all the social medias. You can also find all the places to download the stuff in MP3 format in the description below. If you're into some merch, I have some merch for you. This is also in the description below. You want to get yourself and I am maybe well, there it is. Go ahead and get yourself a hat, get yourself a t-shirt, mug, all that stuff. Like I said, once again, description in the bottom. So all that out of the way, I just paid for StreamYard again today for the next year. So thank you so much, Pam, for all that. That way I didn't have to foot the bill. Anyway, everything out of the way, please welcome to the iTuber Podcast, Mr. Greg Ogles.
Hello. How are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. I'm doing good. There's going to be a bit of a delay. I'm still in the process of getting myself a proper LAN cable, but I am here in the bowels of Mexico, and everything's expensive, and I don't make as much money as I would like to, but don't matter. We'll get there, buddy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it very much. Please do me a favor. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where we can find you.
Okay. Of course, my name is Greg Ogles, and I formed this little tiny itty bitty company called Relic Films. And what we do is we go out and investigate mysteries and folklore from really ancient times or older times, what I call ancient. Some people might call me ancient, but although I might be a fossil, I'm still here. But
you're on the right show. You're on the right show.
So what we do is we just go out and investigate mysteries, right? And we check out the veracity of them. And my first film was called The Legend of the Downy Booger. And what it did was it investigated an old Alabama legend called, rightly so, the Downy Booger. And there was a couple of kids that was coming back from a dance one night in the late 1800s, and what they said was a tall, hairy, wild man stepped out in front of them and their horses, and their horses refused to go any further, and they had to turn around and go another way. When they told their parents, they didn't believe them because, they're teenagers, and, they do what teenagers do. Until it happened again, and a moonshiner actually saw the same thing. Yeah, and he was delivering his payload, and his first thought was to run, but he's delivering his payload of stuff. So he turns around and he shoots the creature. And he said ran off into the woods, and he went and told the sheriff. They formed a posse, and they actually blood trailed it to a cliff, and they assumed it fell off to its demise. So because the kids were the Downey cousins, there was born the legend of the Downey Booger. And back
And this
then,
was released in 2018, correct?
yes, that's when it was released,
Fantastic.
2018. Mm-hmm. And you can find,
please, we'll get there. It's just the timing's messed up because there's a lag in the internet.
yeah,
I'm so sorry.
So you can find the Legend of the Downey Booger either on my Patreon page, or you can find it on Tubi or Amazon or Walmart.com or whatever. So it's a very good documentary. For those who haven't seen it, we actually capture an orb and a crawling Sasquatch all in one frame. Yeah.
Very cool. That's funny. The booger. The first time I heard that terminology when he used with Sasquatch, Bigfoot, forest people was by a friend of mine, and I think he's a friend of yours as well, Daryl Benton, and his encounter grandfather's farm back in I don't know when it was. I think maybe 70s. I'm not quite sure when it was. And what is it? Is that a colloquial term to a certain area of certain parts of the United States, or does it define a particular iteration of these animals or creatures?
No, it's just a colloquial term that Southerners used for anything strange.
Because I've heard of the boogeyman. I've heard of the boogeyman.
That's where it comes from. That's where it comes from.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. I thought the boogeyman was something completely different. I got to look at. Okay, I'm going to have to look at the etymology of that one. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Wow. So you just released what I believe is in January.
I did.
Expeditions. Maybe we can go ahead and get into that a little bit. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cryptic Expeditions is a name of the series of films that I do that really centers around cryptids or just paranormal in general. So the first one was also Cryptic Expeditions, the Legend of the Downey Booger. This one's Cryptic Expeditions, the Land Between the Lakes. Now this one is spectacular. This one is a phenomenal film. It's an hour and roughly an hour and 40 minutes long. And we had so much evidence in this that we actually had to leave some off. Not all evidence made the chopping block.
Oh, wow.
And not all, and some of this evidence that we had to leave off was very good evidence. Very good evidence. UFOs that was just, really, really good evidence of visual evidence of UFOs, and another cryptid that we had to leave off. Anyway, so it starts out with us going back out to where we encountered the Downey Booger and where we investigated it in Bankhead Forest. And we...
Oh, that's interesting. Because I had a gentleman on, Darren Franks, who had an encounter in the Bankhead Forest with a gray one. Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. Pieces are getting tied together. That's okay. All right, man.
Yeah, and that's where the Legend of the Downey Booger was created. So there's a long history of sightings in that forest. Long history of it. So I was just recovering from spinal surgery then, and my partner and I, my buddy and I, we were just sitting in the field in chairs and just enjoying the night. And we just happened to have cameras running because we're experienced like that now, right? And sometimes when you least expect it, things happen. And sure enough, there was a rock thrown at us, and I was like, wow, it kind of scared the bejesus out of me. It was a pretty good sized rock. And pulled out my thermal, and what I saw on thermal was weird. It was almost the same temperature as the ambient surroundings, and I knew I could see something, but if you put that on, blowed it up on a big screen, it would look like a tree, right? Uh, and I
Okay.
really knew this, because it was very similar to the surrounding temperatures. So I pulled out my full spectrum camera, and when I pulled out the full spectrum camera, you could see the eyes clearly. The eyes they were reflecting back. They weren't glowing. They were reflecting. And I'd pull, the camera away from the eye and back, just making sure that what I was looking at was actually there. And it's, on when we, in the movie, we talk about it for a couple of minutes, but it's actually a 30-40 minute encounter, and it stayed there for that long. And, I actually have the footage of it that long, and actually capture it kind of just moving away, and it ducked behind a log, and I never saw it again after that. So, I mean,
Fascinating.
yeah, well, that was the least of our footage, that was the least of it. So that's what we started out with. Then it goes to where we went out again, and I was experimenting with a glow stick. I take a glow stick and I'll put it up in a tree, and then we continue off to our location. And I don't try to make a habit of looking through the eyepiece of my full spectrum camera, because it will give you night blindness. If you look into it, it takes you 20 minutes or so to recover your natural night vision.
Yes, I can understand that.
So
I used to have a telescope where I would look at the moon, and even if you put a moon filter on it, it would actually hurt your eye. It's hard to look at the moon through a telescope, actually. So I understand.
Mm-hmm. So I would pan the camera just at random, right? So we noticed when we were done for the night, we thought it was actually a quiet night. We didn't really hear or see a whole lot with our eyes or ears. But we noticed when we were coming out, the glow stick was on the ground. And I thought, well, maybe it just fell, so I just picked it up and carried on. But when I was going over the footage, I actually captured something standing beside the glow stick, which was about 6 to 8 inches taller than the glow stick. The moon is
Wow.
behind it, and it perfectly silhouettes this thing. And it's just standing there looking at us, And when you slow it down frame by frame, you can kind of see it just kind of swaying a little bit.
Yes. I've heard about this before. Yes.
Yeah. And, that's, really good evidence, but it's still a little bit frustrating because it was backlit and not front lit by the moon, and you can see the silhouette. It's a really good silhouette. Right. So, but it's a little bit frustrating because it wasn't front lit, because I, wanted to see the face and all that, but alas. So then it goes into the metal project, because we were seeing some really weird things when we did The Legend of the Downy Booger. We encountered things like orbs. We encountered missing time, disembodied voices.
Missing time.
Yes. Yeah. And, speaking of the missing time one, we had typically a team of 3, and sometimes one of our kids would go along with us. And this particular instance, there's 3 people with us. There's me, there's Brent Magoo, and Janice Nolan. And Janice's son came with us that particular time. And we had a kind of like a policy of not going out by yourself. You would have at least a team of 2, or all of us would go. And then and then when it wasn't all of us, people would stay back at base camp, right? So this particular time, Janice and I went, and we were looking at these orbs, and there was this purplish haze of some sort. We thought, well, is this a portal we're looking at? Because these orbs was just like all around it, Um, but they weren't really, really, really bright orbs, which is just kind of weird because we see some really bright ones. They look like flashlights. They're so bright.
Wow.
But you could still see these orbs, and I was like, well, this is interesting. I wonder what it is. And then the purple haze just kind of dissipated, and then we're left with just orbs. And we're like, well, this is fun, but we see orbs all the time. So I was like, okay, I'm bored. I'm going to go back. So we thought it was about 45 minutes, maybe an hour, And then we came back into camp. And when we came back, Brent and her son was like, hey, why were y'all gone so long? Y'all were just sitting over there talking, for forever. And we were maybe a quarter mile away, way out of earshot. And we're like, what are you talking about? We were a quarter mile away, and, we were gone for 45 minutes. And we sat there, we actually argued about this for quite a while. And as we were arguing about it, the sun started to come up. The sky started to lighten, and I was like,
no. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
Yeah. Wild. So we were gone literally maybe 5 hours. And that was a weird, because from our perspective, Ryan and Janice's perspective, we were gone 45 minutes, maybe an hour. But what also was weird was that just out of firesight, just beyond firesight, Brent and her son heard us talking the whole time, but which we weren't. And so even in that instance, there was these disembodied voices and missing time together.
That's wild. Doing this this film that you do, the things that you're doing, this is not a get rich scheme. This has to be some type of love affair, some type of like general interest. What made you decide to go, I'm going to go down this cryptid route? What enticed you to do so?
I needed a diversion.
Okay.
Really? I mean, if I'm going to be honest, that's really what it was. I needed a diversion. I was tired of hunting and fishing. And with my job, I'm an engineer by trade, a traffic engineer, and I would investigate crashes at one time. And when you investigate these crashes, you're trying to put together a puzzle, a piece at a time. And you have to go where the evidence leads you, to figure out the actual cause of the wreck. And I'm not talking like I'm just a mundane wreck, or I'm talking about something that's really complicated, because you take a rear end accident, for example. If you're in a rear end accident, but you've got a series of traffic lights, you have to analyze the timing of these lights to determine if it was just somebody who wasn't paying attention and they crashed into the back end of somebody, whether they was looking at a phone or whatever. Or is it that the timing of the lights is such that it causes the drivers to unexpectedly have to stop mid-block on something, right? That's just an example. That's just an example.
So your skill set within your career orientation, or what you decide to do as your career, the skills that you learned or that you acquired or that you honed kind of lends itself to what you do now as I would say a hobby, but it looks like you enjoy it. When you talk about it, you're definitely smiling. I
Mm-hmm.
can tell that I can tell that you're an intelligent, well-spoken person. That's my first. We don't know each other from, a mountain and a molehill. We don't know each other very well, but those are my first pickups of you're an intelligent gentleman. But I can see that you really enjoy what you do. So I figured, if you want to make a film and make money on it, you're going to be doing something like, I don't know, teeny high school stuff. I don't know what's popular nowadays. I'm an old man,
Mm-hmm.
but I was like, so you're just like, I'm going to go out there and like, what started you? How were you diverted in that particular direction? Was there something that just
Mm-hmm.
you heard like folklore, or was there friends that you've had? What started you like doing this?
Well, I've always had an interest in the paranormal. I grew up watching In Search of with Leonard
Okay,
Nimoy.
Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, yeah, I loved Leonard Nimoy. Just about anything, Star Trek, In Search of, whatever. But also, when I was a child, a very young child, I had a UFO experience. It was with
Okay.
me, my two older brothers, and two older cousins. We were on a road walking down to our grandmother's, and this big beam of light shined down on us. And the light was so bright you couldn't even see beyond the edge of the light. And it was
Oh my God.
very, yeah, it was very concise. It didn't diffuse at all. Like, okay, if you take a flashlight and you shine it, typically it has a cone that it diffuses out of, right?
Right.
It'll have a bright spot in the middle, but it also diffuse out. It'll spray out. Well, this
Yes.
didn't do that. This didn't do that. It was just straight, just a straight cone of it. And I remember trying to look up, but it was way too bright. And then I remember looking down at my hands and thinking that I could feel the light. You know, it was very tangible. It was like static electricity.
Okay.
But back then, my little mind said, "Oh, I can feel this light. I can feel it." And my next memory, and really all of our next memories, is being on my grandmother's covered porch, and I was sitting here thinking, how is the light coming through the porch? Because it was covered, right? And
Right.
you know,
Right.
and then I remember seeing the light lift up. It didn't turn off. It lifted up, and just went like pulling up a curtain.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it was gone. I don't remember how I got from the road to my grandmother's house. And a lot of everybody else, my two brothers and two older cousins, they all have the same memory gap. So
That's incredible, dude. And how old were you when this happened?
I was very young, maybe 5, 6. I was very young.
Wow. So that is quite. I mean, I always everyone knows, but you don't know. I had a poltergeist encounter when I was 8. You
Hmm.
know, so but it's. I don't. That's a very interesting account. So everyone realizes. So it was like a lost time again. I'd imagine. Then correct.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. It
All
was
right.
another instance of lost time, and I'll begin by saying that when our walk started, it was dusky dark, and when we were on the porch, it was completely dark, completely black.
Right. How far
And
away is this walking
oh, it
time?
wasn't far, just a couple of 100 yards, maybe.
Okay. That is.
Just yeah, from where it started to where it ended, we were a couple of 100 yards or so.
Yeah, you always
Oh,
hear these things through the years. Through I mean, I'll be having my 1 year anniversary of the podcast, and I've had a few, UFO, sightings or incidents like yourself, but they're always surprising, and you always pick up a little bit more. I've heard people going through walls and all kind of things, but I've never heard it put in such a way where the light goes up like a curtain. That is just, it's dumbfounding. And being so young, you don't know how to put that into context. I'd imagine.
right. And um, I do remember being traumatized at the time, and I didn't see the craft personally. My oldest brother did, and he said it was a giant triangle. It filled up almost the whole sky. Of course, it was
Okay.
probably pretty low, but he
Like the
said it
Phoenix
filled.
Lights or something.
Well, well, it was a triangle, three pointed one. I think the Phoenix one was
It
more
was
of a was
more of a
chevron.
boomerang. Yes,
Yeah, it was
right.
more of a
Yeah,
chevron, where this
right.
one
I'm
was
sorry.
more of a triangle. Um, and it just kind of just and was gone.
That's so.
Um,
You're so nonchalant about it too. I mean, I know you're only 5, and it's probably been 40 something years or whatever, how old you are since then. But it's just people can say those things, and it's just like, yeah, this happened to me. So tell me about the LBL. What sparked your interest in going there and doing your film on it?
well, as we were doing the metal project, a part of our film covers the metal project and Trey Hudson's group, his ASI group, um, because they were experiencing some of the same phenomena that we experienced during the making of Booger. We wanted to find out a little bit more about what we were experiencing, and there we started. I started to hear about the metal project, the LBL, the Land Between the Lakes. And some of the people that were there at the meadow they had actually been there. And, they said it's just real weird there, there's just all kinds of stuff going on. And I was like, yeah, okay. I've experienced a lot. And, your definition of a lot going on is relative, right?
Yeah.
So I thought and for various reasons, I had to keep the metal project portion of the film to a minimum.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not really going to go into it, but
That's
it's
fine.
just
Sure.
got to do with, anyway.
Right.
I decided to keep it to a minimum, and I needed something else to add into the film, right? So I was like, "Wow, the Land Between the Lakes! It sounds like a great place to start investigating."
It sounds beautiful. Like if you think about just the
Mhm.
name of it, it just sounds so beautiful. But of all the people who go there, I had on what was it called? Massacre at LBL. I can't think of the gentleman who wrote the
Yeah, the
book.
massacre. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I can't
maybe is
remember his
that
name.
Barton
Steve
Nunley
Causey.
or
Steve Causey.
Kim Cosby?
And yeah, Steve Causey. I think it was a massacre at the LBL, and he
Hmm.
went back to an encounter. I think it was in the '90s, and then I started learning about it through not Barton Nunley, but I started learning about it from big tall guy Daryl Denton, and
Hmm.
he was just telling me about it, and then I ran across I think it was a Tony Merkel podcast where Martin Groves came on, and I listened to that like 3 times, and it's just a interesting area. So like, maybe you can kind of explain to the audience what is this place and what is being seen there, what is being reported, and kind of
Hmm.
what it feels like when you cross the I don't know the border or when it starts to get weird. There's places in there that I've heard of. There's certain coves. There's the Devil's Ridgeline or Backbone, I think it's called. There's
Hmm.
quite a few things there. Maybe you can like give us your point of view.
Okay. Um, well, we kind of delved into the history of the LBL to kind of get a feel of what could be happening there. So it used to be called the Land Between the Rivers,
Right.
and that land there was actually given to some of the Revolutionary War veterans as payment for their service during the Revolutionary War. Okay,
Okay.
so it stayed in many of their families all the way up until the government wanted to make a dam, make a series of dams there for hydroelectric electricity. So confiscated all of the land there, and they unfortunately they bulldozed a lot of lands. They flooded a lot of cemeteries. They actually some
Yes.
people were actually killed because they didn't want to
Wow.
go. It's it, the way this land was taken back was by force, and the way it was done really lent credence to there being a lot of uh, pain in that area. So we're like,
Okay.
wow,
Okay.
if nothing else, it would have remnants of this pain still being there. Um, and upon visiting there, it's a beautiful place. When you go there, it's very large. Now it's going to take you an hour and a half or so to drive, north and south from one end to the other. It's a big place, uh, and there's lots of campgrounds in there. The campgrounds are, some of them are primitive, some of them are have electricity and water and sewage. So there's a good mixture for anybody that wants to go and visit and just have a nice recreational time there. It's beautiful during the daytime. At nighttime is when it starts to take a little bit of a different feel. There, it seems like every road in the place has a cemetery attached to it. Um, the first night, we were there. We went off to one of these cemeteries, and we began to see orbs. Now, a little bit about orbs. I don't I don't count pictures of dust as orbs. I don't think those are orbs. Orbs to me, you see them with your eyes. They're very luminous. They get bright. Sometimes they're wispy, almost like a lightning bug, but they're much larger than lightning bugs. Sometimes they're 10 to 20 seconds, and sometimes they'll stand there for hours and be illuminated for hours, literally hours.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I call orbs. And we were having an orb experience that first night that I arrived there, and it was nice. It was beautiful. Um, and I saw something there that I had never seen before. There was a large group with us during this first night. There was probably 25 people, and they were scattered out, in
Okay.
various places. After I started seeing the orbs, we started saying, "Hey, turn your flashlights off. Please turn your flashlights off. Don't shine your flashlights around." Because it's been my experience whenever you shine a flashlight at an orb that they disappear, and they'll stay gone for 20 or 30 minutes before they reappear, if they reappear at all. So,
Right.
we're trying to get that communicated to everybody, and of course everybody doesn't listen. And I see a color of light that I've not seen before. It was yellowish light. Okay. But I couldn't see the source of it. And I started maneuvering myself until I saw the source of this light. And when I did, it was very shocking for me when I saw the source. I've seen orbs. This was no orb. This was rectangular, at the 90 degrees, and I actually got to look inside for lack of another term, I'm going to call it a portal. It was
Okay.
it was daylight on the inside of this square or rectangle. It was daylight wherever it was. Now, it could have been on the other side of the earth for all I know. I don't know where it came from, but where
Uh-huh.
we were was, around midnight to 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay. So, it was very dark where we were. and I was looking into this portal, and I was shocked. I was like, wow, that is the coolest thing I have ever seen. I've seen a lot of weird stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
How big was it if you had to describe the size
it,
of
it
it?
was
This pole.
okay. It was probably about 3 foot wide, 3 to 4 foot wide, and about 4 to 4.5 foot tall. It was almost square, but a little bit taller than wide.
Okay.
Okay. Um, and it was quite low to the ground. And it wasn't as tall as I was, which I'm not the tallest creature in the world, but I know it wasn't as tall as I was. So it's probably 4.5 feet tall and about 3.5 to 4 foot wide, something like that.
Right.
In very defined 90-degree angles on it and very two-dimensional. So where I was
Meaning?
looking, yeah, where I was looking at it from the side, I was very near, um, not 90 degrees, but 180 degrees to
Okay, I got
the
what you mean.
sides of it. Yeah. So it was like looking at a sheet of paper. I couldn't see the source of it, right? I had to maneuver myself until I came to an angle where I could see it,
Hmm.
right? Um, so I'm sitting here looking at this thing and I was just in awe. There was another I say young lady. There was another lady that saw the light from the portal. She didn't get over to me in time where somebody had shined a flashlight and apparently it hit the back of a tombstone and it reflected, back toward our direction, and then everything shut off, including the portal. You know,
Ugh.
that was really frustrating
Yeah.
uh, because you got some people that just won't listen. But
Yeah. Sometimes it might be advantageous not to go in such large groups, maybe five at the most or something like that, like more
yeah, that's normally what I
seasoned.
would go in. Mhm.
Right.
And,
But
and and
okay.
yeah, and you're right to be with seasoned people, but again, this was our first night there, and I hadn't been there very long.
Okay.
I'd gotten there probably 3 in the evening, and uh, this was probably at midnight of that same night. So, but a few minutes later, there was an orb that did come up from where that portal was, and it just kind of hung out for a little while. So that was our first night, and I'm like, wow, that was really interesting.
Okay.
Um, so the first time we actually go out investigating, um, we asked Martin Groves. We said, "Hey, Martin, do you have a place that we could go where we actually have a chance of seeing something, having an encounter?" And he says, "Got just the place." So we travel about an hour from our location, and I couldn't tell you how to get there now, but as soon as we get there, we're going for filming purposes, right? So when we get there, I'm like, we get back to the back of the truck, and I'm unloading our gear and putting lapel mics on, and just
Hmm.
doing our thing.
Doing your thing.
Or-
Yeah.
Yeah, and Martin runs up to a grove of trees and does his whistling thing, which he says calls the Bigfoot. He says he has a special whistle, a special series of whistles, that when he does that, if they're around, they'll come down. Well, he did that and they came down.
Oh my God.
And they were okay. As I'm getting out our equipment, right? I heard a kind of sound. It's a gruff growl, whatever.
Hmm.
I don't really pay a whole lot of attention at first. I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird. And I just keep doing my stuff. And then it does it again. And I'm like, hey guys, did y'all hear that? And as I'm saying that, it does it again, but it's really close. And I was lucky enough to grab a camera that was there. It's not the one that I wanted. It wasn't my long range night vision camera. It was a short range night vision camera meant for videoing subjects only, right? So you
Okay,
have to be
got you.
close. Yeah, you have to
Okay.
be close to your subjects. So I grabbed this camera, and my buddy freaks out. He just goes into a panic mode. Just, oh my God, we gotta get out of here. Let's go. It's here. So I grab him by the back of the coat, and I'm like, Brent, calm down. It's okay. He's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. We got to get out of here. I'm like, Brent, calm down. And I'm trying to get the camera to work with one hand. It's pitch black. And then as I'm trying to fiddle with this camera, I look up and I see it. It's standing right in front of the truck. And it's like at one corner, the front corner of the truck, and I'm standing at the back
Okay.
opposite corner of the truck.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I look up and I see it. I see it from its bust up, and it's just standing there, just standing. And it's very classic looking. It's very classic
Okay.
Bigfoot. So I'm stunned. I've seen a lot of things, right? And I'm stunned. And it seemed like it took forever for me to get my senses back, my faculties back.
Right.
In reality, it was probably 1 to 2 seconds, really.
Right.
But it's like one of those situations where time stands still, sort of.
Right. So when you see it's like seeing like those movies where you're like they're at a dance somewhere and you see this beautiful woman who's now looking at you saying, "Come dance with me," and then the music plays. But like this isn't supposed to. I know I've seen this. I know I've seen that. I've heard this. I've heard of that. But when you're confronted with it, it's a whole different ball of wax. I can completely understand that.
Mm-hmm. It is. And lo and behold, through all this chaos of trying to get Brent under control, finally Adam takes hold of him, and and I hear the camera start to wind up. That was, and I'm like, ooh, got the camera going. So I make the mistake of looking into the display screen, right? I'm like looking into the display screen. It's pitch black out. Never look at the display screen. Just try to point the camera at it, right? Because when you look into that display screen, you lose all your night vision. Your natural night vision.
Right. Where your pupils dilate and open up. Right.
Yeah. So I couldn't see the thing anymore. So I'm just trying to film generally where I saw
general direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trying to. I didn't think I got it. Didn't think I got it at all until we had the premiere. Now, when it's on that big giant screen, I heard, and I pointed in the camera. You can see the camera go up, and you can see its eyes reflect back, and you can hear the whole audience go, they all at once. They gasp.
Oh, that must be a great feeling. It must be a great
feeling
being so much right. Because people don't realize it's like you're doing two things at once. You're doing something that you're extremely interested in. Oh, three things. It is scary, but at the same time, it's an art form. You are trying to conceptualize an idea that's in your mind and put it into an audience's feel. And if they are going, that must be an incredible feeling being an artist at that moment. It must be awesome.
It was absolutely awesome because, next to me was Adam Davies, who's also in the film. And he looks over and in his British accent, he says, "Elf, yeah, we got it." We high-fived each other at the same time.
That is cool, man.
It was a great moment, man. Just absolutely great moment. So we're sitting here filming this whole encounter, and there was one particular time where Okay, well, Adam's military training starts to take over, right? So he knows that if you try to run or something like that, it might trigger something in the creature to chase
Yes.
after you,
Yes. A
right?
predator
So it's
response. Mhm.
right. So it's best to stand your ground. So that's what we were trying to do: stand our ground and try to push this thing back deeper into the woods. So we get together and start trying to form a line, and every time Adam takes a step forward, it growls.
Oh my
Just
God.
just a and um, there was one particular time where it was rather close to us, and it growled, and it was on. You could hear the mics, just the whole theater just vibrated, and
So cool. I gotta watch this. I gotta watch this now, dude. All right, you
yeah,
got me hooked. All right, all right.
yeah.
Is this
So
on
the
Tubi?
whole
Is this also on Tubi also and your
no,
Patreon
it's
as
not
well?
on Tubi yet. It's not on Tubi yet.
Where is it?
Well, it's on my Patreon
All
page.
right, okay, all right. Send me your links, buddy. I got to get this out there.
Mhm.
I'll search for it myself. If you don't have time, I'll take care of
Yeah,
it. But
yeah.
oh,
Just
wow, okay,
just go to relicfilmsmedia.com and it'll
uh-huh,
take you straight there. Um,
okay,
so, I mean, we capture these growls multiple times. It's not just one. But if you, particularly if you wear earphones, or if you, because it's at such a low frequency, you
right.
have to have bigger speakers to pick up the growls.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have
Subwoofer.
yeah, subwoofer.
Yeah.
If you have a big subwoofer, it'll be fantastic to watch it on,
Oh, cool.
or headphones, either one of the two.
That's exciting.
So as we're trying to push this thing back, right, and it's growling every time. This thing growls probably 14, 15 times. I mean, it's not just once, twice, three times. It's probably 14, 15 total. But we do capture, I think, 4 or 5 of the growls. Um, anyway, so we do finally successfully push it a little bit back into the woods, and its eyes starts glowing then, and we capture
Glowing
its
or
eyes
reflecting?
glowing, not reflecting,
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was
glowing.
just because earlier you made it a very important
Distinction.
distinction of reflection, and this time you said
Mhm.
glowing. I was just making sure. That's all I'm doing, my friend. I promise.
Yeah, they were glowing this time. Um, Now we call it eye shine. Yeah, that's just a generic term, and
Mhm.
when we say eye shine, it could either mean reflection and or glowing. But there's when something reflects, it'll reflect the same color back, right? So when you do it with when you're picking up reflection with uh, a black and white camera, you'll see a version of black and white reflect back at you. Well, because it was glowing, they were glowing red. You can see the
Red.
red. Yes, they're
Wow.
glowing red. So you can see they're glowing red, right? And as our attention is focused in on this, I'll be damned if something doesn't throw something from our left. And I have to say, hey, Adam, we've got something over to our left too. They're throwing rocks from our left. And he freaked out then because he instantly recognized with his military training what was
Mhm.
happening.
Yes.
They were flanking us.
Yep.
They were something. There was a distraction there, and he's like, "Oh crap! They're flanking us. They're smarter than he thought they were. Much smarter."
They're extremely
Um,
smart.
yes, extremely smart. So, the encounter lasts probably 25, 30 minutes total.
That's a long
Um,
time.
it
That's a
is a long
long time.
time. Hmm.
I just had Ernie Dalviau on, and he was talking about how the thing was doing like hand signals, like pointing at him. then pointing at itself, and then opening the palm of its hand and saying, basically, don't shoot me, and da 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 da. The level at which these things are able to communicate and be the best hide and seekers in the history of the world is just fascinating. And it's what do you have you had any? I'm going to ask you, because if you're in the LBL and I don't mention this, then I'm not doing my job as a host. What any encounters with Dogman, or anything about Dogman that maybe other people wouldn't know about, or the experiences that you've had yourself or people that you've known?
After that weekend, that filming weekend, I went back up to the LBL again a couple of weekends later, and again we started to see orbs, and we had something walking around that seemed heavy, but let's see how to put this. Its feet did not seem as big as Sasquatch.
Okay, that makes sense.
But it seemed big. It seemed heavy when it stepped. Okay, so we had that kind of going on around us, and we were able to get eye shine on something, and this was eye reflection. This was not eye glow, it's reflection. And whatever it was about 7 foot up off the ground or so. I don't think it was Bigfoot. Don't think it was Bigfoot, because it successfully hid behind some bushes and trees, and it was probably 150 feet away from us, roughly.
Huh?
So it was at the extreme edge of the flashlight's range. However, when the person I was with, when he first turned on that flashlight, I saw something at the very peripheral edge of the flashlight. How I mentioned before how a flashlight cones out.
Yes, sir, I do. I remember.
Yep. So at the very edge of that illumination cone, I saw something, and it darted away, and I was trying to get his attention to shine the flashlight away, and it was big too, but not Sasquatch big, right?
Okay.
It was more lanky and more lanky than what you would think a Bigfoot would be.
Yeah, Bigfoot's like more bulky and
Yeah,
square,
a little bit wider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this was very lanky. And when it darted off, I remember seeing, it kind of took a turn, and then almost as if it was going down to all fours and moving away. Now, Bigfoot do that too.
Yes.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so, Bigfoot do that too.
What's next for you then, my friend? What is next for you in these Cryptic Expeditions? Maybe Eastern Tennessee, going out with my buddy Harley, because he's running into a ton of stuff out there as well, or something completely off the map, maybe a Wendigo. You go up to like Wisconsin or Michigan and you run into a Wendigo. What's next for Relic Films? What's on the docket?
We've started a film on missing people, and it's going to focus in on the Cades Cove area. So It's going to be in southeastern Tennessee.
That place is a hot spot. That whole area, that whole region of southern Appalachia is, I don't know what it is about it, but for some reason, everybody that I run into this podcast, not everybody, I have people from Wisconsin and Michigan and other places as well that I was mentioning. But that for some unknown reason to me, unbeknownst reason to me, maybe you can tag in and maybe you know something. It's just that place is so active, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, it actually it's very active. And I'll share a little bit of our experiences and observations with your audience. A lot of places where we go and we see these have heavy orb activity, there's lots of quartz in that area. So you should be able to look around and see quartz just even laying on top of the ground. You know, there'll be quartz everywhere. So we've noticed that there's heavy quartz in these areas. So, excuse me.
No worries.
But if you find yourself in an area that's got lots of quartz, you have a higher chance of having some sort of paranormal activity. And I even call Bigfoot paranormal. I know some people do it as cryptid, but
it's a little both.
Yeah, it's all paranormal to me until it's normal. You know,
that makes sense. That makes complete and utter sense. That's cool. Okay, so quartz. Shout out to Alfred Santariga. He had a place in New York where he said there was a lot of quartz in the ground, and that whole night everything went crazy. Everything popped off, and it's like it's conductive of electricity. What is it about quartz that makes this happen?
Well, it's very good at storing energy.
Okay.
And you know, even these quartz watches, you know, you put a little pressure on the quartz, it'll release electricity, right? So any quartz that's in the ground has pressure put on it, so it's, you know, putting electricity out into the atmosphere. So that may be how these orbs and things are able to manifest. They're able to absorb this extra electricity that's in the air, that's in the surroundings.
Yeah, it makes complete and utter sense to me. I live on the Yucatan Peninsula, and here it's utter limestone, which is also has a bit of that quality to it as well.
It does.
And there's a lot. I've run across things. I have 10 acres out in the jungle, literally, that I bought, and I've seen lights. It wasn't orbs. It was more like a flat circular light on one time on the ceiling and one time on the wall, bluish white. And as soon as I looked for the source, as if it were to be a flashlight, it then disappeared and it wouldn't come back. And then I heard one time, another time too, but one time in particular, after I seen it, I heard like some voices behind me about 30 yards away. And I don't know what it was. And then I just, I actually invoked the name of Jesus, say, hey, this ain't cool. I'm out here in the middle, literally the middle of nowhere. And it's just so I guess you're saying there's a lot of quartz in the Tennessee area or in the Southern Appalachian area as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There is. You know, that area was one of America's first gold rushes. And, usually where there's gold, there's quartz, and vice versa. Where there's quartz, there's gold.
Okay.
So it really makes sense that there would be lots of quartz in that area. But yes, there's lots and lots of quartz here in the South, or at least particularly in the Appalachian area. And every place where I went that's had lots of orb activity, including the Meadow, there's lots of quartz in that area.
The Meadow.
The Meadow.
Where's the Meadow at?
I can't tell where it's at, but
it's in the film. It's okay. A meadow is the
Meadow Project with Trey Hudson. He's somebody else that you should talk to, because they've had lots and lots of experiences. And
what's his name? I'll write it down.
Trey, Trey.
What's his name? Trey, Trey. Yes.
Hudson.
Hudson. Trey Hudson.
Hudson.
And this is the Meta. META?
Yeah, Meadow. MEADOW. Meadow.
Oh, Meadow. Okay. I keep thinking
Meadow.
You're saying something. It's like Facebook.
No. The Meadow Project.
Okay, sure. I would definitely contact them. So
Hmm.
before, first of all, thanks so much for coming on. But before you get up out of here, I want to take your opinion on this because it's been baffling to me. Why do you think? I mean, if you're putting these films out and people are seeing them, there's a lot of Bigfoot conferences or Wildman conferences. At
Hmm.
what point do you think that the scientific community is going to actually pick this up? And if not, why not?
Hmm. Well, the, there's lots of reasons for it. There's part of academia that actually refuses to accept anything but Newtonian physics.
Got you.
Um, and they think that anything beyond Newtonian physics doesn't exist, which actually we know that type of thinking is wrong, and it's very narrow minded, and it puts all of science into a teeny tiny little box, right? Um, I think it's arrogant to say that we know all that there is with through Newtonian physics. Newtonian physics is only baby physics compared to what is
Yeah.
really out there. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you take into account just quantum physics, which I don't even think
Mhm.
would explain it either, there's something,
Right.
it's a little of everything.
Hmm.
It's a little of everything. And okay, please, I'm sorry. It was just,
Oh
yeah,
no, go ahead.
I agree with you. I agree with you
Hmm.
100%.
Yeah. So part of it is just sheer arrogance. Okay. Another part is they do. When I say they, I want to start talking about the government people now. The government doesn't like to be out of control. Government
Ooh.
loves control.
Ooh.
Okay.
Oh, dude, all right, man. Me and you are going to be friends because I know exactly what you're talking about because they need to look as if they can project power and that we know what's going on.
Right.
Gotcha.
Part of the art of war is to project being in very, uh, when you're weak, you project as if you're extremely powerful, right? That's part
Right.
of the art of war. And they, our government knows how to do that. They've read the art of war. And when they say over and over and over again, there's nothing else but, we know everything. We know it. We know it. That's an indicator that they don't know it. Okay.
Right.
And the government doesn't like to come out and say, yes, these things exist, but we don't know what they are. Uh, or,
Yeah.
and, and I've had conversations with people that's in, I'm not going to say where they're from because I don't want to get them in trouble. I've had conversations with people who have had conversations with other people in their industry
Hmm.
that tell me about things like portals that us humans have the ability to open up portals, study creatures that comes through these portals. Sometimes sometimes they'll place creatures out in these forests and study them. So see what they do.
Hmm.
Um, so again, this is things that I hear, right?
Uh-huh.
I don't know that for a fact, but it's what I've heard it from multiple people that don't know each other in these
Right.
industries. Okay.
Right.
So
Right. That's so
there's
awesome.
got to be something to what they're saying. So they don't want you to know that they have some of this technology. And like the UFOs, I think it's plainly obvious that UFOs exist. Um, I know I'm a UFO knower. I know they exist, so I don't have to be convinced that they do.
Right. And you
Okay.
don't have to convince anybody else either. I think
Yeah,
people should look
I
at this
don't.
stuff for themselves if they're
Yeah,
interested.
true, true. And I don't try to convince anybody else of anything that I've encountered, like this Bigfoot stuff. Okay, I know Bigfoot exists because I've seen it. Um, I've experienced it up close and very personal. Um, so I just try to show the audience what
Right.
we've experienced. I don't try to convince people of anything. I don't try to prove their existence. I'm like, why do I have to prove anything's existence? I can
No,
go out and film things and say, hey, look, these things exist. Take me for my word, or don't take my word at all, or whatever. This up to you. Um, but I'm sitting here telling you these things exist, and these is what we have encountered. So if you go out into the forest or whatever, take things for what they were.
right.
It's up to you.
Yeah,
However, if you get the government involved in something, everybody knows the government doesn't do anything very well except break things and kill people. That's what the government sort of does.
all right. I got
That's the only thing
another,
it does very well.
another edit.
I'm so sorry.
No worries, my friend. It's fine. It's what I do. This is my job. You were saying what you need to say.
Anyway,
I
let
wish
me
we could speak.
rephrase.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Let me
We know
rephrase.
what you said. You're
Yeah.
gonna hear, but it's fine. It's completely fine. I think it's admirable what you do. I know whether people like it or not is it's that's what it is. What you showed. Like, I'm a musician. I play what I like because I like it. Now, if you like it or not, that's up to you or not. Don't. But I'm not here to convince you. I'm just here enjoying myself. If you want to be a part of it, that's also fine.
Right.
And I think that's what it needs to be, instead of like trying to put something in a box or trying to convince people of whatever it may be, whether it be that COVID was or whatever.
Yeah. So
It's crazy.
when it comes to proof of Bigfoot, you'll have government make some assumptions like, okay, well, this is its habitat, and all of a sudden it's going to be an endangered species. And the next thing you know, it'll be illegal to go out and harass Bigfoot, just by going out and experiencing things with them, or So then you won't be able to go out camping anymore. And then their habitat will have to be saved. So that's going to hurt the logging industry. And one thing's going to lead to another. It's going to have all these unintended consequences. So for those reasons, that's why I say just leave the government out of it.
Yeah, that's a good point, dude. That's a good point. But there's going to have to be. I think we're. I don't know when it's going to happen, but there's a bit of a hope in me. There's going to be a watershed moment in which people just go, yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
a UFO landing on the White House lawn or something like that. One of those kind of things
Mm-hmm.
where it's just so obvious. I don't know what that would be. To convince people, if you think it's fine to lock your, that the entire world locked itself in a house, and everyone was just fine with that, and at the end of the day you still believe it was a good thing, then I don't know how to talk to you. You know what I mean? That's
Mm-hmm.
why I'm here. I left where I was in Germany, and I was like, I can't do this anymore, and
Mm-hmm.
got too much pressure, and if I can't speak my mind or live freely, then what's the
Mm-hmm.
sense of being to exist in the first place? So yeah, I think there's a lot of that's why I also like people always like, especially when you're in Europe, but like to bash like the American concept. Like, you don't understand it because you guys have been so whatever you are for however long you've been.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll bash whoever the president is, and they go, how can you do that? And I go, like, you guys voted in 1933 a particular person, you want to talk to me about it? Because that's where I was, in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of that too. And I really connect with the people from this region as well, because for me, it's Americana. I enjoy it so very much. We're in this together. We help out our neighbors. Um, and sometimes while we're out fishing and hunting with our friends, we run across some crazy shit. And
Mm-hmm.
I love to hear people who, because Jim is from the South, Jim
Mm-hmm.
Powell, the Fisher Night Watch, and he's so articulate when he talks. And then you
Mm-hmm.
go, well, he's from the South, so what? The stereotype. And then I speak to Mr. Ogles here, and he's able to articulate even. Sorry, Jim, I love you, buddy, but even a little bit better. And it's like, so it's not what it is, and people have different points of view, but this is the one that I enjoy the most, because people are the most open, and people are most friendly, and they're not afraid to push the limits of freedom, as well as go into
Mm-hmm.
the forest and see what the what in the bloody hell is going on out there? You know what? It's pretty crazy, dude. And I think it's fantastic. I mean, do you get scared at all doing this? Because you're telling your friend to calm down while you're reaching for a camera. I think I'd be your friend. Do you ever get like a little bit like scared doing this?
I can't say that I haven't been, because there was a time or two where I actually have been a little nervous. I wouldn't say scared, just a little nervous and concerned, because I didn't have my uh, comfort pistol with me.
Gotcha.
You know,
Sally.
yeah, I didn't have Sally with me. So, um, however, during this encounter, seeing how fast that thing moved and how big it was, I don't know that we have a handgun that will put one down. I really don't. I mean, this thing's huge. This thing's huge, and it was so fast. I think if it really, really meant us harm, and there was more than one, that would have been harmed if it really meant us harm. Right.
They also move really strangely too. Like
They do.
compared to like, it looks like they're apparently like they're kind of floating a little bit, but not really.
Floating.
Yeah, and it's kind of like gliding is another word for it. They're incredible, man. What do you think they are?
I've seen enough in my travels to have a lot to question what they are. When they're here, they're solid. They're beings, right? And they eat. They may even sleep. Whatever, I don't know, but I've seen enough where footprints may we've been following a trail and the trail just disappears in the middle of a field. I know portals exist, and there is an association between orbs and Bigfoot. I know that for a fact. I don't know exactly what that association is. I do have some theories, but if I'm sitting here putting these pieces of a puzzle together, and I'm trying to form a picture here, I know portals exist. I saw an orb come from where those portals are. Whenever we've seen Bigfoot or had Bigfoot activity, we've had orbs. And when we got the Bigfoot crawling on the film in the Downy Booger, the orb that was behind it started pulsating and just acting really, really crazy. Okay. So it's my supposition that Bigfoot is not from our dimension or plane or not from Earth, that they can travel through portals and they may be able to transform themselves into these orbs.
Wow. Yeah, you know, there's people who swear up and down as one way or the other, and I always, you know, because I haven't experienced it myself, but I listen to firsthand accounts, and you know, maybe they see them and they don't see, you know, what you've seen at the same time. It could be quick, could be fleeting. Sometimes it's just a certain way and a certain timing or whatever they're doing at the moment that you don't see these things. But I completely believe you, dude. I think it's the most. I think what you're doing is spectacular, and I love your approach to it. And thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me today. I really, really, really appreciate it. We should do this again sometime. I mean it. And at the same time, could you please once again tell everyone where they can go and see your films?
You can go to relicfilmsmedia.com. That's relicfilmsmedia.com. And it'll take you straight to our Patreon page. And there you can purchase the Downy Booger or the Land Between the Lakes, and you can enjoy them both.
Yeah, that's fantastic, dude. So, all right, man. So, thank you so much for coming on, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful Greg Ogles, Relic Films. That was a very very good interview, and I enjoyed talking to him. He was very versed in what he does, and his encounters and his filming techniques and things like that. That's I don't know what to say. It was enjoyable. It's fascinating, and there's scary parts to it as well. That's what these what this is what the show is sometimes. If you keep finding yourself coming back to the show, please do me a favor, like, subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Go over to Rumble. You can also download it. Go ahead and leave me a like a what they call it, a rating, and leave a review, whatever you want to do. Download it, send it to your friends, grab yourself some merch, go over to the Facebook page, and come over and check us out. And I'm over there all the time. I don't do other media so much because it's too much to do, to be honest with you, but maybe one day I'll be over there as well. So remember, we are the eye, we are aware. Love you all.